This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring former FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke.
Rex Heuermann, we've been watching this. We've been watching his family because they've been very visible in their front yard, basically, since all of this went on and they ended up back at the house. But Asa Ellerup, she doesn't cease to surprise me, quite honestly, with some of the requests, some of the statements that have been made thus far. And in no way am I saying she had anything to do with this. But again, it's kind of one of those, really? Are we going to throw a stink about this? The stink that we're hearing is she wants her guns back, or all of the guns, the hundreds of guns that were seized from the property of the man that they believe is the serial killer. But she wants them back because she thinks they're marital property and worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. She may have a point, but at the same point, we're pretty much in the middle of a very active investigation into her husband. What's going on here? What is she thinking clearly? Is the attorney just making crazy accusations? Does she need money? What's happening here?
Yeah, I wish we could spend more time on her, not meaning you and I. I wish we knew more about her background and the nature of that relationship, because it is very odd. I don't think needing money is the odd part. I don't think trying to get property back that can be sold for revenue is the odd part. But this relationship's odd. And what I'm curious about is why she is still with him. Because even I was looking at a report earlier today about how he basically stalked a coworker onto a cruise ship, saying he could track her. I mean, so if you have a lifetime of your husband doing really odd things, at what time do you get out of that situation unless you've been, what's that word I used the other day? You're a victim of trauma. You're trauma bonded.
Trauma bond. Yeah, trauma bonds happen. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I'm seeing some elements of trauma bonding in here potentially, but it's really hard to say because all we're seeing from her is the complaints, the victimization, all the things that are rightfully being wronged upon her. But at the same time, though, we don't have any other optic. So it's really hard to say what's going on without another optic, because the only time we see her or hear from her is when she's complaining about something. But she's a human being. There's a lot more going on there, and there's a lot more to this relationship. There's a lot more to her background. And understanding her key motivations, we need a life arc. We really need to understand a lot more.
We do. I think what's missing in a lot of this is we're not feeling, I guess, the trauma of the relationship, that if there was trauma in the relationship between her and Rex, one would assume that there was. If she is trauma bonded and she's been staying with him for all these years, despite his behavior, which I'm sorry, I can't believe that they went all of those years and she had no clue that he was at least at the very minimum into hitting on other women, at the very least, because it seems that he obviously went much, much further and she stuck with him. But we're not seeing anything. We're seeing very much, it's a narcissistic type personality. And I'm not saying there's a disorder there, but it seems to be 100% me. There hasn't been the show of empathy at all for the victims, for what the potential of what her husband may have done. And I guess, she's not responsible for those actions, but at the very least, most of us are sitting here trying to put ourselves into someone's shoes, even though this is a very difficult one to do, and think, if my spouse were arrested and I had no clue that they did any of these things, I don't know that I'd still be trying to make everything about me. I'd be very much concerned that I was even with this person and this damage had been done to all of these lives. I don't know that I'd be making the complaints about I want the 300 guns back, or the FBI messed up my house when they searched it, considering the grounds that they searched it on.
So let's reverse it again.
Yeah.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, all right, we're trying to figure her out, and we can't figure her out from her own behavior because we're only getting small glimpses. So let's go back to him and think in terms of why would he choose her to be part of his life, to be part of his ruse, basically, because if you're trying to hide your horrendous behavior, you want to put on a fake front for the rest of the world. And what kind of person would you need to have as a partner? Because you can't have an accomplice. Accomplices really complicate things, and they are huge vulnerabilities to your safety and ability to perpetrate these things. And so you want someone who's going to be non-emotional and more pragmatic, but also not too deep of a thinker and a prober.
Which is what we have.
Yeah. So that kind of explains the behavior, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so now if we take those behaviors that he was looking for in a partner, I won't say necessarily a wife, because he doesn't from the optic we're having, doesn't seem like he treated her like a wife.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she was quick to divorce him once she was made aware or confronted her of what the actual behavior was, which means that she might not have really done a deep dive on things that she observed, or she was gullible to the things that he was telling her. Again, going to not a deep thinker. Can't comment on intelligence or anything like that, but just really not a deep thinker, not skeptical, not challenging of the information provided to her. So, and that's who he'd want to have in his life, to put up that fake front and also not challenge him on his behaviors.
Well, we can look at it from another direction too. She filed for divorce once the public knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's another thing, not just that maybe she found out who he was in its entirety, but the public found out who she was. And if she's connected to somebody that has that sort of an image, I think almost anyone would be like, I'm out. But what was the tipping point, I guess, is the question point for the divorce? Is it the public finding out, or is it her finding out?
That's a great point. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure how much she's, at this point, I'm kind of still 50-50 on it. Maybe shifting a little bit more towards your side on maybe it was the public opinion, because she seems to be wanting to use public opinion to get the sympathy, to get things.
Yeah, because that's really been what a lot of this has been about thus far. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to armchair quarterback this, but the optics thus far have not been very good. I think that can be agreed upon by most people.
Yeah, which also demonstrates that she doesn't have a lot of. So it might be her compulsion and desire to utilize public opinion in these ways, and public opinion matters to her, but she doesn't have any reps in doing it because she's falling flat with all the attempts.
You're consuming the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts, and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member, exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast, dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.